Hey everyone, I'm Chief Meteorologist Jordan Frazier. I want to go ahead and go into a little bit more detail about what we're expecting over the next couple of days because things are getting a little bit crazy, at least based on the model data. But let's be realistic, when is that model data ever really extremely accurate? Yeah, that's what I'm here for, and I'm here to break down what we're seeing right now. Active radar? Well, yeah, we actually had a cold front come through earlier this morning. It kicked up our wind gusts a little bit to about 30 to 40 miles an hour, enough for some localized blowing dust, but nothing too crazy. Temperatures only got up into those upper 60s for this afternoon versus those upper 70s and even the lower 90s that we've been seeing lately. All right now on radar, a little bit of activity popping up just to the south of Carlsbad and to the northwest of Pecos, and these are just going to be very minimal rain chances, an isolated shower, a little sprinkle, that's completely fine, but this heavy cloud cover is going to continue into those overnight hours, leaving us with more and more moisture in the atmosphere, and that's really the issue that we have going into later parts of tonight. We've always talked about that strong severe chance over the last couple of days out to the far eastern areas and out toward the Mississippi River Valley. Now, those rain chances are continually staying on the strong side. For us, though, well, we're kind of on the tail end of this entire frontal system. We do have that level 2 slight risk in effect for later tonight and into early Friday morning, with Midland, Odessa under that level 1 marginal risk. But this is really more of a, hey, we're putting this warning here just in case anything happens. It's a very conditional risk factor. So we're going to keep our eye on it. Hail and strong winds are going to be possible. The tornadic threat is very low, but it's also not completely zero. So overnight tonight, you're going to notice temperatures dropping down to about 50 degrees. That's right on par with where we should be for this time of year. We should normally be around 49. Not bad, not bad. Northeasterly wind is going to help keep us on the cooler end despite a lot of those overcast skies. And rain chances, I only have 20% because most of you aren't going to see anything unless you're in the far easternmost counties. So let's break it down for you on that future track. I'm actually going to go all the way back a little bit. So starting around right now, yeah, a little bit of that cloud cover, kind of exactly what we're seeing. It is starting to show maybe some pop-up activity around Odessa, Midland around 9 o'clock tonight. Nothing too significant. It's just going to be some beneficial rainfall. And that is all we've been asking for. Since the beginning of the year, we really just haven't had any rainfall. If you want to get technical, 0.11 inches is all we've gotten recorded at Midland International, and that was from our ice storm back in January. All right, let's play this through a little bit longer. You start to see two distinct cells, one up in Hobbs, the other down toward Ozona. I want you to focus mainly on the ones in Ozona because it starts to split apart. You have two individual cells now, one pushing over to San Angelo, the other one kind of staying just to the east of Ozona, and that's when we're going to see more of that activity begin to ramp up. Remember I showed you where that level factor risk was? It was mainly on our far eastern counties and just to the east of our main viewing area. That's exactly where those storms really begin to pop off, with a couple of those spotty rain chances around Carlsbad, Hobbs, Guadalupe Pass, even moving up towards Seminole and trying to push as far south as Winkler County and even Andrews County. Moving forward a little bit more, still pretty active. This is 2 a.m. We don't typically get a lot of active weather during the overnight hours. Most storms run on heat. They need heat to survive. They need an unstable atmosphere. They need wet air and they need heat. Well, we actually have a lot more moisture getting pulled in by some strong winds, and temperatures, yeah, they're not very high, but this front itself increases instability in the upper parts of the atmosphere, creating these overnight storms. Makes for a really cool light show, when you're watching it from the distance, away from any kind of lightning or severe weather threat. Pushing our way all the way to about 3 a.m., most of Brownwood actually seeing a lot of activity in the far side of Fort Worth, kind of moving into the Metroplex. Might even see some of that activity. By around 5 o'clock in the morning, so when we go live for our sunrise show, I'm just not seeing much of anything going on, which is honestly good. We'd want if we have to deal with any kind of severe weather, the last thing you want is for it to happen when you're out and about, when you got to drive somewhere, you got to go to work. You're best off safe at home, sound asleep, although it's a little bit hard to sleep when you have some of that tick, tick, tick of the hail on your windshield or window, windshield, your roof. Not the best scenario. Throughout much of Friday, it's actually really nice. Lots of cloud cover, a little on the chillier side because of that cold front. Temperatures are going to stay on the cooler end, maxing out maybe in those lower 60s to those upper 50s. Okay, I can deal with that. All right, Friday afternoon, still a little bit of activity kind of popping up right where we're seeing stuff right now, out toward Pecos, Van Horn, Guadalupe Pass, and then pushing its way up into New Mexico, right on top of Hobbs. So here's around 5 o'clock or so, just before we go live for our Rockhounds live show. Yeah, 6 o'clock. Not bad, still not seeing much, but then we have one little cell, or actually a couple little cells forming right around Fort Stockton. That's when they try to move their way up. Although that's typically not the pattern we see with the majority of our weather. Anything that really forms right over the Stockton Plateau tends to just kind of stay stalled out. We don't see much action. It doesn't move a lot. It leads to those flash flood warnings. Based on this, it's still showing, hey, it's going to move up and possibly bring Midland and Ector County and maybe even Howard County a little bit of those increasing rain chances. Now, we could all use some rain. Absolutely. But here is the problem. If we start to see lightning and thunder risks, they're going to delay the Rockhounds game. Rain chances, baseball and rain don't really work out too well, but rain isn't going to kill you. It's going to be just fine. I will see some localized heavy rainfall areas, especially where you're seeing more of that red. Later into Friday night, starts to get a little bit more active too, but then that activity kind of subsides in the northern basin and pushes out farther and farther to the east. We won't actually see much activity for us, but boy, oh boy, it really acts up. San Angelo, Abilene, out toward Brownwood, even toward Dallas. Wow, a lot more stuff. This entire frontal system is actually hooked up with low pressure. It starts spinning, and we start to see a little bit of that downward slope. So you actually see the low pressure itself. I'm trying to do this like in the mirror. That's what the low pressure is doing. So on the northern side out here, we're going to see more of that rain kind of come looping down from New Mexico in toward the Permian Basin and the Trans-Pecos. The one thing that's throwing me off, and well, it's very rare that it happens around here, is the snowfall. We are continually decreasing those temperatures as we go into the later part of Friday night into early Saturday morning. Saturday morning, your high is going to be about 50 degrees, but that's going to be right about now, 9 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, so temperatures are going to continue to decrease, and as they decrease, you start to see more of that precipitation potential turn into mixed precipitation, turning into potential snowfall. Now, if we see stuff in the high elevations, all right, I'm not surprised by that. Especially farther and farther up, higher in the atmosphere, you're going to see cooler and cooler air. You might even start to see a bit of accumulation. Great. I don't mind a little bit of snowfall, but then the temperatures in the atmosphere continue dropping to where it's now trying to show heavy snowfall for Odessa, Midland, and Big Spring. Do I believe that this is possible? I believe we can see a lot of flurries. The atmosphere is going to be colder than the freezing point. The surface, not so much. We're going to be kind of lingering around. And when you have a very wet atmosphere already with a little bit of that rain that we see in the earlier part of Saturday, I'm not going to see this accumulate. I'm not going to see icing over the roads. We're going to be keeping an eye on it, of course, as we learn more. But that's why I always say take the models with a grain of salt. This is what we're using to try to predict the future. It's not always going to be accurate, and it comes down to, hey, how long have you also lived in the area and seen and experienced the weather too? So I'm going based off what I know, and I don't see a whole lot. If we do see anything, again, some little flurries in the atmosphere, great. It's kind of cool that we're seeing that in April in all reality. But then it calms down by 10 o'clock. We're kind of back to a nice steady pattern. I will show you one of the other models that we tend to run. This is the IBM model. It is one of the more reliable ones, very high resolution, good solid data. The HRRR model tends to be what the National Weather Service uses. It is still a very solid high resolution model, but it tends to overestimate a lot. So let's see what they're actually starting to show. Going into Thursday night, already showing a lot of activity, even going in toward midnight tonight. It's still showing that same kind of cell beginning to develop around Ozona, and then it actually pushes its way out towards San Angelo and Abilene. All right, so they're kind of following a similar pattern, with New Mexico getting more of that beneficial rain. Unfortunately, this model doesn't go out super far, but let's check it out. Friday morning, relatively calm, not a whole lot going on. Then we get into the afternoon. Still, most activity, even during the Rockhounds game, is going to be situated in New Mexico. We don't have to really worry about it, at least along the Permian Basin. Still showing those rain chances holding off until about 11 o'clock or so. You get that nice squall line forming and then pushing out farther and farther east. So the models themselves are in relative agreement. Most severe weather, if we see anything, is going to stay outside of the region. Just do be prepared for any kind of hail or wind threat. We're also going to keep an eye out on any kind of tornadic activity. While it's going to be very limited, it's still kind of later, early in the year for us to see a whole lot of tornadoes. They can still certainly happen. Just like it's a little late in the year for snow, we're still going to be seeing that though too. All right, going into 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, still seeing more and more of that rainfall potential pushing its way down into the Permian Basin. Unfortunately, the model stops here at about 2 o'clock on Saturday, still showing potential snowfall for those high elevations. All right. Here is that severe risk for Friday up to a level 4 enhanced risk already, or not level 4, level 4 moderate risk out for much of, looks like, northern parts of Louisiana, East Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, and even much of Arkansas. Wow. Yeah, a lot of activity going on. As we move it forward, what is it going to be for us, at least locally? Most of it is going to be outside of our region. So we're going to keep an eye on that, see what happens. All right, I'm going to pause this real quick, move it back just slightly. 48-hour rainfall totals. I'll tell you the time. So this is going to be starting off tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock. You might see a quick little sprinkle here and there. Great. Let's move into Friday night. Friday around 7 o'clock. Still not bad. Not looking at a whole lot of accumulation with the exception of New Mexico. And then we push our way overnight into Saturday morning. Saturday morning, 7 o'clock. All right. Still at most maybe an inch or so around Big Lake, Ozona, where they're seeing that heavier activity. And then we're ramping all the way around Saturday at 10 p.m. Ooh. Hey, if we get that amount of rainfall, I'm going to be very pleased. But it also means we're going to see some very heavy rainfall and the potential for some of that localized flooding. You guys know how the roads get out here when we get enough heavy rainfall. So we're continuing to watch the situation. Most of the severe weather is going to be avoiding our area, and not everyone is going to see rain. That's why I'm keeping these chances right around 40%. I could go as high as 50 right now. I just don't have high confidence in those models currently. But you know what? I would rather underestimate on these rain chances than overestimate. We all know the other channels try to do that too. Tell you 60-70% chance of rain. That means 60 to 70% of you watching at home are going to see activity. I'm not going that high. I like to be a much more realistic meteorologist. You tend to trust me a little bit more, and of course, I appreciate you guys for always tuning in. Here's what I do have. Temperatures really dropping off for your Friday, for your Saturday. Saturday's going to be downright chilly. Might need to turn on the heat even into Sunday. But then we just recover. It is one of the best recoveries we could possibly do. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we go back to ample sunshine and warmer temperatures. 70s and 80s make a comeback. That looks like a nice spring forecast. I mean, they did say April showers bring May flowers. We just have a lot of sand, though. Hey, if you got your own personal garden, you're going to love a little bit of rain. Let's just hope we avoid the majority of our severe weather. So, of course, if you want to stay tuned for the latest, go ahead and download our News West 9 app on the App Store and Google Play Store. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now. Just pull out your phone, take a camera, and it will lead right to it. It is free. You got to watch some ads though, but again, you got to watch ads if you check out our website, if you check out even our Facebook pages. That's just part of life. Hey, stay tuned for the latest and go ahead and have a great rest of your evening.